Come on in, folks. Come on in. Let's get your comments rolling. Till then, I'll go live on YouTube. I am live on YouTube. I'll go live on LinkedIn. And then, after I send people the message on WhatsApp, that's when we'll have the show that we deserve. That sounds fair, right? Sounds fair? I guess it does. I guess it does. Let's have the show that we deserve. Done. Live on YouTube. Live on LinkedIn. Presumably live on LinkedIn. Yeah, live on LinkedIn indeed. And then live everywhere, right? Send a message to people on WhatsApp. Let's go. Let's have the show that we deserve. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. Let's do it again. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. But before we go, gotta follow tradition. You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together, and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Lovely. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together, which is such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. A lot of things are happening for Indigo, none of them good. There's a huge brand equity piece which says how Indigo killed its brand by informing customers last, by not taking the government safety norms seriously, by having all sorts of operational issues, not showing leadership, right? Having layers of failures like onions peeling out, right? So it is a pretty bad reading of the situation for Indigo. And you know how it's getting worse? India seems to be calling CCCI investigation on these guys. CCI investigation is Competition Council of India, of course, right? They are looking at an antitrust inquiry on Indigo, which is obviously something that we saw coming. If you remember, I told you a lot of people think this is the government's fault, but this is not going to be taken lightly for Indigo, right? Indigo really screwed itself when it came to this particular case. It sort of overplayed its hand when it came when it came to the leadership position. So when companies like Indigo get a 65-70% share of the entire Indian airspace, you know, they feel they have a bit of a commanding part, a lot of leverage when it comes to uh, the whole industry. And while it's a fair estimation, airlines are a deeply regulated, in fact, an over regulated, over competitive, very controlled business. As Mr. Peter Thiel said, airlines are the worst businesses to start. Despite providing such economic vitality, they do not make money. They do not. They are over-regulated. They are stringently regulated. Uh, it's just a very bad way to earn money starting an airline, right? That was his thesis. Competition is for losers, and he was right. Ministry has ordered Indigo to cut flights by 10%, right? 5,000 plus cancellations have happened now. But as ops are stabilizing, the government is like, take it step by step, bro. And now, when the ops stabilize, there's going to be an antitrust inquiry, which is going to find out whether there was malified intention when it came to following DGCA's order. So, since everything was informed 2 years ago, so it's totally on Indigo. That's what. So recently, somebody on LinkedIn had essentially written an article about how it was the failure of bureaucracy, and I said in that article's response that you're totally wrong about this. It's totally on Indigo, right? And that's what's emerging as the day. So once again, you know, helping it helps to understand things early, don't you think? It helps to understand things early. Speaking of understanding things early, folks, Trump is allowing China to munch on Nvidia chips. 25% levies on shipment for approved customers. Intel, AMD also eligible. At the same time, China is uh, limiting access to Nvidia chips. So Trump essentially is looking at the second best chips, the H200s. Then there's Blackwell, then there's Rubin, right? So, but Beijing doesn't want it. Beijing is like, we do not want these chips and so on and so forth. So right now there's 25% levy. As time progresses, I think, you know, Trump will be begging China to essentially buy Nvidia chips, because Nvidia is in deep trouble, and Nvidia's troubles are US economy's troubles right now, US markets troubles right now. Nvidia is in a very fragile situation. Whatever truth is emerging about Nvidia is, none of it is good news. None of it is good news. So don't be surprised in the future when you find out that Trump is trying to persuade China to buy Nvidia chips and China says no, right? Because we are not prepared for a problem with Nvidia. That's the situation. Uh, that's what's going on with US. Speaking of US, folks, Trump is essentially looking at a new Fed chair, of course, right? Jeremy Powell is going to be out very soon, and his preference for a Fed chief is somebody who is pro rate cuts. So if you remember, Trump has been talking about rate cuts since a year now. Mr. Jeremy Powell, said that he's going to look at it through a non-political analysis, to which Trump said he's a moron. He's too late, Powell. He gave him nicknames. He said that this guy has problems, and now Jeremy Powell sort of directly or indirectly got persuaded, right? So US is gonna cut rates, and he says, Trump says that Jeremy Powell is a mix of not smart and doesn't like Trump. So he's clearly talking like that about the Fed chair, and he's saying the next guy will have to be a little more smarter than that, which is which is pretty interesting, right? That's how. So Trump, the beauty of Trump is what he has done in a very very good way is he's demolished the credibility of all of these institutions. When it comes to United Nations, WHO, all of these people, he has demolished their credibility, which is very, very important. He demolished the credibility of news media outlets first, right? When he said fake news, he pioneered the fake news play, right? It's because of him we now know that the news is fake, and it has always been. So he absolutely steamrolled the entire media corporation, the media, legacy media's credibility. And then he took down these global bodies' credibility, right? Including the Nobel Prize credibility, uh, right? He ended up hurting it. And now it's Fed. So every institutional authority has been demolished by Trump. Trump, in a way, has come out and proved that at the end of the day, institutions are just people who are leading them. I'll say that again. Institutions are just people who are leading them. It doesn't make sense if it's the WTO or it's the WHO. If an asshole is leading it, it's a bullshit organization, which is what happened with the WHO. And we got very, very clear. What do you think about Trump's policies? It may bring investment short-term gains for US economy, but due to his protectionism, other nations might build their own products and services, says Mr. Sumanth Kumar, more glory. So, Mr. Kumar, the thing is, Trump has arrived at a wrong time for this particular thing. The battle is already over. They lost, right? He's been saying these things since 1980s, essentially. Chinese devaluation, we should not be, the WTO movement of 1990, China, the Iraq war. He's been talking about those things for 40 years now. Now, till 1990, there was no problem, right? Then 1990s happened, the dot-com boom covered everything, right? When the dot-com boom happened in the 2000s, the Google and so on and so forth, China ended up doing the protectionism, right? Nobody stopped it. He was there talking about it. He came in 2016. By that time, US was already toast, if you think about it, right? The whole play was already done. But whatever he's trying to do, he's trying to put a bunch of band-aids on a sinking ship. That's my reading of the situation. But you never know, right? America believes in this exceptionalism theory. They believe that they're an exceptional country and they're always gonna work out a solution to things, right? It's just gonna be something or the other and they're not gonna lose. That's what America thinks. That's, by the way, also what Britain thought. The empire, the sun never sets on the British Empire. That was Queen, right? Because Britain essentially ruled the world. That was also what Dutch thought before, and so on and so forth. So America is in a lot of ways a falling empire, right? As Ray Dalio keeps talking about. But what the beauty is that now we know the reason for these falling empires, which is just beautiful, right? When you're talking about institutions, you're talking about United Nations. Now we know what a bunch of jokers United Nations is. WHO, what a scam ridden piece of shit WHO is, right? All these media companies, they're a bunch of assholes, a bunch of sold out people, right? We now know that none of the institutions stand because of institutional integrity. They stand because of the leadership, and that's what it means. There's just one person behind that institution, and if that person is respectable, right? If that person uh, is of integrity, is of high integrity, you have a good institution, you have a good organization. Otherwise, it's just bones and bodies, right? And that's a very very insightful. That's like a, you took out a whole mask, the Scooby Doo mask unmasking moment, because that's what people thought. Nobody touched the Fed before, despite whatever they did in the 2008 crisis, the everything they did, right? Nobody touched them before until Trump came along. And that's awesome. That's awesome, right? Which is good. Uh, Speaking of him, he says Zelensky needs to accept that he's losing, right? He sees EU talks a lot, but they don't, Russia is a bigger part. So just look at the pragmatic take on the situation. Okay? Russia has the upper hand, and they always did. They're much bigger and stronger in that sense. I give the people of Ukraine and the military of Ukraine tremendous credit for the bravery and fighting all of that. But at some point, size will win, generally, and this is a massive size, right? He's gonna have to get on the ball and start accepting things, when you're losing, because he is losing. They talk too much. He talks about the EU, and they're not producing. We're talking about Ukraine. They talk, but they don't produce, and the war just keeps going on. That's what Trump says about Russia and Ukraine. In the meanwhile, Zelensky says Russia insists we give up territories. We will not, right? That's his stance. Obviously, he will not. Because the day he gives up territory, which he will have to, Zelensky, and the day the war closes, people are going to kill him like they killed Mussolini in public, right? That's his fate and he knows it. So he's going to want to continue this forever. Now let's see what EU does. Let's see what America does, how they end up supporting this, and so on and so forth. Right? Trump has tried his best to essentially stop the war, pressurize Russia, and so on and so forth. Nothing has really worked out. Nothing has really worked out. Let's see what happens with the Zelensky situation. Right? Very interesting times. Very interesting times. But we might just be closer than ever to a resolution when it comes to this. And that resolution might just be Zelensky's ass, right? Moving on, folks. Nations way off track to meet climate goals, says UN. UN is still, harping on that climate goal play. But you know what they've added to the climate goals spiel? Pollution. Earlier, climate was an existential threat. It was the world end, right? That was Greta Thunberg's reaction. She said the world is going to end by 2025, right? Or something of that sort, 2020, 2021. She had to delete those tweets, but UN took her very seriously because it ended up being a very nice way to mobilize a lot of new money, right? The old money was set, mobilizing a lot of new money made sense. And climate was a means to that end. Well, that went out of the picture, right? Because it's the flavor is out. So now they're talking pollution. They've shifted goals. So I'll tell you, and this is happening for the first time, folks. So this is the first time when pollution, which is actually a meaningful thing, right, is being included in climate change. And this is what Trump said, right? Forget about the climate. We need to think about clean air, clean water, clean environment, good environment, right? That's what we need to think about. So this is the first time when these particular guys say, we have four environmental crises: climate change, loss of biodiversity, pollution, and land degradation. So they're trying to hedge their risks. They were all climate, right? That this world is warming up, sea levels are rising, it's gonna be end of the world, so on and so forth. If you watch Day After Tomorrow, a pretty good apocalyptic movie on the world end because of the climate crisis, all of those things, right? That's what their initial stance was, that the world is gonna end, it's gonna hurt, and so on and so forth. Now it's pollution, land degradation, climate change, and loss of biodiversity. So climate change still exists, but now they're trying to hedge that position by including, actually meaningful things. And soon enough, you're gonna see that these people will stop talking about climate change altogether. They'll just be talking about clean air, clean water, exactly what Trump said. So all of that new money mobilization play is gonna go out of the window, and they're gonna be forced to talk about things that matter, right? Which might not be able to mobilize the money that they were looking for, but it'll still be meaningful. Why? Because all of these people are frauds. These people are liars. These people are intellectually dishonest pieces of shit, right? And now their cover is blown, and they're having to pivot. And their pivot, thankfully, is good for the world, right? Solving pollution cannot be a bad thing, right? And it'll definitely help countries like India. It'll help everybody, right? Instead of made up climate goals, which these people keep pushing. So that's what's happening with UN and climate goals. The last straw for these guys to drum up the climate crisis. Moving on, folks. And soon enough, you're gonna find counter signs, right? When it comes to climate crisis, you're gonna see that how all of these people were knowingly misleading public, all because they were trying to mobilize some money, right? That's what they wanted. They wanted to mobilize new money, and that's what all this was for. The whole climate hysteria, scaring people, not stopping companies, stopping countries from actual development, and so on and so forth. It was all very, very political, and so on and so forth, right? So you're going to see all of that, and it's already happening. But now that powers have changed, you're going to see it in an accelerated space. All of these people's covers will be blown sooner than anybody can even understand that how did they change their tune. So now they've included pollution, now they've included land degradation. Now they're going to shift away from the whole thing and focus on these two things only. And this is begun. So very, very important paradigm shift in the world of these dishonest pieces of shits, right? Moving on, folks. The Netflix deal with Warner Brothers, the Paramount Netflix deal, all that's really kicking in, right? Uh, Brothers, Kushner, Ellison, and Apollo back Paramount's hostile bid. Now, Jared Kushner, one of the largest alternate asset managers, and also Trump's son-in-law, they're backing David Ellison's bid, Apollo, and everybody. So they're mobilizing a lot of money, right? 40.7% billion dollars of equity will be provided by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, right? A lot of capital being mobilized for this particular play, and the president, the Trump administration, is personally involved in making sure that these people actually have their way. So let's see how this particular corporate battle pans out. For now, it seems that it's going to be it's not set in stone. So please don't think that just because Trump is getting involved or Jared Kushner is getting involved, it's a sealed deal. No. But they will try to make an offer which is so unambiguously better than Netflix that it's inevitably going to shift in that direction. You know why? Can you guess why? Why is that going to happen? Why is this so important for David Ellison and everybody else? The whole Warner Brothers playing go. Hint. Do you want a hint, or do you want to take a guess before? You want to take a hint, folks? Why is this so important? Mr. Sumanth Kumar says Trump. It's actually all political. Netflix is a woke organization, extremely woke, extremely liberal, right? And the entire US media infrastructure is basically changing, right? It is looking at a cataclysmic change from uh, ultra left to right of center. So these people are gonna screw the lefties now, right? And that is the way the wind is blowing, and they're gonna try their best because if Netflix acquires Warner Brothers, the media landscape will still stay the same, which they don't want at all. So the right wingers, they'll try their best to essentially take that away from them. Let's see how it happens, right? Very interesting times, of course. EU opens antitrust probe against Google for the use of AI tools. Google says a lot of regulations are hurting AI as an industry and so on and so forth. EU doesn't mind. That's the only way for EU to make money, right? Since they don't have any tech products of their own, they want a piece of fine money. They can just find the big tech and make money. Europe has really fallen. Speaking of some international relations, let's say geopolitics, Madam Sheikh Hasina has responded to her death sentence, essentially. She says, when normal democracy returns in Bangladesh, the ICT death verdict won't survive because it's a sham. It's the Yunus government which is planting all of this, and so on and so on. So that's huge, right? Huge, huge. And she's saying this from India. So India is caught in the crossfire. Actually, India is a part of this crossfire. I've been following closely, right? India was very pro Madam Sheikh Hasina government. The two countries were making a lot of progress when it came to trade partnerships, when it came to working relationships. India's inland waterways, the very ambitious project which wanted a lot of work, right? Which meant sending things from rivers, right? And initially, when they had made that plan, they were looking at sending shoes from Agra to literally Bangladesh through inland waterways. Such was the relationship between India and Bangladesh. Unfortunately, for Madam Sheikh Hasina, she was pretty vocal about not being pro America, right? There were some concessions that she was not willing to make, and then she was ousted. The American deep state really screwed her up. Uh, India is still holding her. Let's see what India can do in the whole Bangladesh situation. For now, it is very, very sad. Moving on, folks. Uh, Microsoft has chosen to invest $17.5 billion in India, its highest in Asia, right? Slew of announcements headlined by 4-year commitment for local AI cloud infrastructure. 17.5 billion dollars. This money is not going to Andhra Pradesh, unfortunately. It's going to Telangana. Why I said unfortunately, it's just a joke. I'm not like anti Telangana. Please don't do that to me. It's just that Andhra Pradesh has been sealing the deals at rocket pace, right? And this one didn't go its way. So it's just a interesting pattern. $17.5 billion. This comes after Google's $15 billion, right? Amazon Web Services $8.3 billion. Reliance Industries, Brookfield's $11 billion. TCS TPG's $12 billion. So in net, right? I guess these people have mobilized what? 13, 20, 21, 30, $53 billion. $53 billion in AI and data centers and so on and so forth. This is huge. This is huge. $53 billion is roughly what? 1 lakh crore is $14 billion. So you can say over 3 lakh crores. right? Definitely over 3 lakh crores, 3.5 lakh crores have been mobilized, announced, right? And it's all going to be deployed in the next 5 years. So you can expect somewhere around 60,000 to 70,000 crores being invested every year for the next 5 years when comes to the whole AI and data center operations play, cloud infrastructure, and so on and so forth. What do you think is the 60 to 70,000 crore rupees a year gonna yield for second order effects? Are you interested in this? Are you interested in thinking and calculating where these 60, 70,000 crores every year on these data center operations, how are they gonna pan out, right? It's very, very good news for the land, of course, right? Then there's also going to be very good news for some ancillary industries who are going to be suppliers, like some real estate companies, right? Who are going to be building and so on and so forth. Great news for metals, great news for a lot of players, right? A lot of players. As a second order consequence, there's going to be housing projects around these things. There's going to be, commercial real estate picking up and so on and so forth. There's going to be electricity, the demand generation, the power play that's going to lead to. So everything gets connected in very, very big ways, right? Speaking of connected things, the VinFast group, the Vin Group, essentially Vietnamese automotive maker, they're looking at investing $3 billion in India, not just in cars. As they said, they're looking at a very broad base of investments. They want to go heavy on real estate, heavy on housing projects, heavy on office complexes, and so on and so forth. So, a lot of work, a lot of capex India is suddenly starting to invite. Why? Why do you think India is being able to attract all of this capex all of a sudden? Well, it's very obvious. We are growing faster than everybody, and now our domestic economy has proved its mettle, and that's very, very good news. That's very good news. Just one second, folks. I need my spectacles. I was getting a lot of glare. So, growing faster than everybody, and also, the domestic economy has somehow proved to be not an absolute dud. Moving on. Speaking of dud or holes that have been dug, cricket incorporation is looking pretty weak right now, right? 2027 seen as a whole new ball game. In a high stakes match for media rights, broadcasters on a sticky wicket. So earlier, the broadcasters used to be very happy because they were sponsorers, the media players, and so on and so forth, right? Uh, uh, no, the IP rights used to be good. Broadcasters used to be heavy on the wicket, right? Now it's all crashed because profits have been very, very lackadaisical. So if you look at shrinking advertising budgets, weaker TV profitability, and continuing streaming losses have forced broadcasters to reassess how much they can afford to pay. At the same time, industry consolidation, Star India and Viacom's merger has reduced competition for major cricket properties. So the cricket properties, and that's why those people were looking at selling out, right? One of the teams, was it Rajasthan Royals or some of the teams? They were essentially looking at selling out because this is the time to sell out. These teams, these IP holders, they were very, very happy for a very, very long time because they were making money no matter what happened to the people who bought the rights. Now, when that goes away, all of these people become very, very scared, right? So that's what's going on. The long running model where broadcasters absorb losses while right owners and franchisees gain has run its course. The development marks a sharp contrast to buoyant 2022-23 cycle when nearly 10 billion was committed to cricket, 6 billion for IPL and 3 billion for ICC. It's not gonna happen anymore, right? Why do you think it has suddenly hit the course, right? Why do you think? Can you guess? It's a very easy guess. We've talked a lot about this. Problems existed, of course, even before. But why do you think suddenly the cricket money machine has fallen out of flavor. We know about this. You can say that. Come on. Come on, folks. We've talked about this. You know about this. Mr. Ashutosh Bhandekar says real money betting apps banned. Correct. So it has been the exacerbating factor for the entire cricket thing because these people were putting in a lot of money, 6 to 8,000 crores every year, and they had a parallel economy running when it came to cricket, right? So it's not just cricket and these people paying money for the media rights and so on and so forth. There was a parallel betting economy that was running in full swing. Now, when that goes away, a lot of money goes away. And when that goes away, some people who were really, really enjoying for the last few years, they're going to have some trouble times. They're going to meet reality. Fallen ICC bilateral rights value likely. $1 to $2 billion IPL franchise value is no longer assured. BCCI posted a 3,500 crore surplus, and everybody else lost money, right? 20,000 crore cash in hand for the Indian board, 11,000 crore generated from IPL, but all of the broadcasters lost money. Geo Hotstar earlier, now Hotstar, everything. So it's just a dumpster fire truck on steroids right now, which is not surprising. It shouldn't be surprising. Moving on, folks. While cricket is doing whatever it's doing, other sports are growing in a very organic, reasonable fashion. And while they're not as valuable as cricket, of course, their viewership numbers are real and they're not leading to money losses for people who are actually buying their rights. I'm talking about Kabaddi, of course. That's doing very well at a scale much smaller, of course, but success is success, right? Moving on. Starlink, we had the news that they had taken the website away. The pricing that was existing, $8,500 and some 34,000 rupees. That is off. Starlink is looking at a 2,500 to 3,500 rupee plan, right, for the retail customers. 2,500 to 3,500 rupees, as compared to what? How much does a recharge cost? A monthly recharge, somewhere around $350, right? 350 to 400, 400 maximum. So that's what's going on. Starlink 2,500 to 3,000 at 8,500. It was almost double Indonesia Brazil. Double Indonesia Brazil means Indonesia Brazil are looking at somewhere around 4,500 to 5,000, right? If they are looking at 5,000 and we are looking at 2,500, that is now comparable to the per capita play, right? So Brazil is at 10,000, we are at 3,000. It could have been one third, but it's now half, almost half. So that's pretty cool. So everything can be just paper napkin math is always the best way to look at things. If Brazil is priced at $5,000 approximately, India obviously would go at somewhere around 1.5 to 2,000, 2,500 maybe, right? And that's what it comes. So per capita also needs to be balanced with PPP, right? PPP is purchasing power parity, of course, where India stands a little better. So $3,000 in India means about $5,000, $6,000 Brazil, I'm assuming. Yeah. So if that is the case, 2,500 is right on the money when it comes to pricing for India, comparing with Indonesia and Brazil. So this could have been I told you, right? When we talked about 8,500, we said that, hey, per capita income, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't. And now it does, right? 2,500. So we can ourselves do all of these seemingly complex calculations just while driving. We don't even need to be very, very focused on these. These things which seem very complicated, actually are pretty simple, right? Pricing strategy. Moving on, folks. Mr. Ashutosh Bhandekar asks, thoughts on F1? Well, India is not ready for F1. They want to try. And frankly, I don't think India is a market for F1. Although they are trying. They're trying real hard. When they tried before, they failed. They failed to mobilize any money. And it really went out of picture. But that was also a government problem. Also, F1 requires a lot of red tape. Unfortunately, it's dependent on a lot of interaction with babus, which is very very hard to match, right? So F1 still remains like an uncharted territory for India, in my opinion. Let's move on, folks, to another story. Electronics companies seek China joint ventures with stake cap 26%. They're looking at approvals, right? India hasn't. Electronics leaders have asked the center to allow investment proposals while limiting equity ownership to minority 26%. That's what they're hoping for. Still, the ministry hasn't really given a go ahead. I wonder why. Everybody wonders why. At one point, we're seeking Chinese money, we're seeking Chinese tech transfer. At the other hand, we are basically not giving approvals where there should be. So, this is or could be one of the cases of conflicting governance coming from two different ministries. So two different babus have different priorities, right? They're looking at two different things. One has to be protectionist against China. The other is responsible for gathering Chinese money. So one babu says, "Hey, let's bring those guys." The other babu says, "Where is the regulation, right? Where is the compliance overload and so on and so forth?" So conflicting governance leading to breaks for whatever's being done for China's participation in electronics component manufacturing. Everything, all of this is related to electronics component manufacturing, and that is quite something, right? Let's move on, folks. Really dumb political discussions. Super dumb, super dumb. You listen to one political discussion and you'll be like, oh god, my IQ just dropped by 10 points, right? One more Kashmiri doctor, by the way, got arrested for the Red Fort blast. What are they studying at medical institutes in Kashmir? Right? My god. My god. What are they looking at exactly? What's the goal? It's too much of a pattern, right? Too much of a pattern. Moving on. Unilever wants HUL to follow India growth path. Country's demand outlook up after years of inflation-driven pressure, says Mr. Fernandez. Unilever, the company, I told you about it. So if you've been watching Thinkers Frequency for a very long time, we actually timed the journey of these FMCG companies and extremely accurately. So when we began, right, the whole domestic consumption thing was in the toilet, right? And then the whole uh, effects of personal rationalization started kicking in, right? That was one of the first 20 episodes. We said at that time that still there's a long way to go and we need a consumption thing. Consumption thing is gonna happen around the festivity period. Till that time, these people are gonna be way down in the toilet, right? The stocks. Uh, Thankfully, with the government, it really boosted the consumption sentiment during the festivities by implementing the whole GST play, and now it's up. So what they're looking for is to grow with the country. That means that they're looking at a 7 to 8% growth rate. HUL hasn't been able to grow like that since quite some time. At least the last 2 3 years have been very lackadaisical. So that's their target, right? uh, India's GDP to grow at least in line with India's GDP. Well, that's a fair estimate, right? India accounts for 14% of Unilever's revenue, with only US accounting for a larger share at 21, right? 4% volume growth in both markets, uh, and that's not cool. 2% sales quarter rise for Unilever. That's the problem, is that they're so big that it's hard to grow, and that's why this new chief has come in for premiumization, right? Madam Priya, she is a beauty veteran at Unilever, and her job is to first of all value expand, of course. Sorry, volume expand, but then volume expand. Value expand. First volume expand, then value expand, because premiumization is how Unilever is gonna sustain its metal, right? That's what's happening. Let's move on, folks. Urea imports zoom 137%, output dips 4% in April. Shortage in Kharif sowing season as China temporarily halted exports. This is once again China hurting Indian agricultural output, Indian agricultural robustness by blocking the supplies, the fertilizers, and so on and so forth, right? Now, this is very sad. India has been trying to deleverage from Chinese imports when it comes to agricultural supplies by going to a few countries. Can you name those three countries? Those are three countries where India has been going to diversify its imports of agricultural supplies. Do you remember, folks? Give me a cheer if you remember. Three countries. Two are big, one not so much, but we've talked about this. So when China was not really giving the exports to India, right? India essentially went to these three countries to try and find out if it could get the agricultural supplies, and then China opened the exports. But what were these three countries? Do you know? Yes or no? Or we'll move forward, right? It's gonna hurt India because the monsoon has been great. The sowing season is very important. It was Russia, it was Saudi Arabia, and it was Morocco, right? The strange country of Morocco. That's where India was looking. Moving on, folks. Moving on. Winter session is on. PLI is in top gear. Sales worth 32,000 crores have been achieved by beneficiaries of PLI in auto. PLI is, of course, production linked incentive scheme. Heavy Industries Minister says 32,000 crores. That's what's happening. Battery PLI, only Ola has been the only beneficiary. Good news for Ola. At least one good news for that company, right? Still, the company's still in the toilet, but one good news. Moving on. What's Ola stock doing right now? Did anybody check? Let me check. Ola share price. Okay, so let me check it by a 6-month window. 6 months down 30%, 3 months down 41%. Holy shit. 3 months down 41%, almost 50%. So it halved, right? Almost halved from the peak valuation, which is exactly what I told you. You remember that? You remember what I told you? That's Robert De Niro from Casino. I knew what I could do and whatever you're gonna do, but you remember what I told you? Exactly. This is exactly what I told you. There's gonna be a valuation switch from Ola to Ether, right? And they literally halved. I didn't even bother to check. But predicting future is a very nice exercise. And if you can do that well, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Moving on, folks. Hotels have also gotten trouble. Of course, the second order effects of Indigo's troubles would be the hospitality industry. Hospitality industry. Or it's going to be the second order effect of hospitality industry going to the toilet if Indigo's troubles sustain, which they're not. But let's say that all of these problems persist. You know which market is gonna get hit? It's the hiring market, the blue collar hiring market, because hospitality hires a lot of blue collar people. Speaking of second order effects, the air supply, the airlines getting hit by the airspace problems, the airport, the supplies of the aircrafts, that is also leading to problems because they are hitting bottlenecks, and that's going to lead to additional pressures on airlines for money, for money. So let me check Indigo FY25. How much money did they lose in FY25, folks? Net profit of 7,200 crores in FY25, right? That is March, ending March. So let's say FY26 Q1, that they made a loss of 2,000 crores in FY26 Q1, okay? Just one quarter. Now FY26 Q2, is it out? Okay, FY26 Q2 losses came out yesterday, I guess. So what are these numbers? Net loss again 2,500. So just in the first 2 quarters of this fiscal year, Indigo has lost more than 5,000 crore rupees. In the last fiscal year, they made 7,200 crore rupees. What's going to happen to the next 2 quarters, folks? What did I tell you about airlines as a business? I feel like an African lady in hindsight. What was that joke from Family Guy? I told you, like I told you, didn't I tell you? What happened? Exactly what I told you. And when did I say it would happen? A long time ago. Right? Always fun. Always fun when your predictions come true. Always fun when your predictions come true. I was sad that my prediction didn't come true when it came to the RBI rate cut. I thought that they didn't go well. They won't do it. They did it. And that sort of hurt the bond market as well. So if you look at SIDBI and, PFC, they've withdrawn the 11,500 crore bond issue because of higher yield bonds, right? So the prices were not good. They had to take that bond away. Now the bond market is in trouble. And that's exactly what I was thinking. That banking has taken so long to stabilize. Another rate cut would literally take that wind off their sails, right? But, RBI went ahead and did it. Of course, there are positives when it comes to the rate cut. It's going to be good, right, in the long run. But at this moment, we could have let it go. But anyway, folks, moving on. Ghost malls wither, waiting for a second life. 1 in 5 shopping centers in India face high vacancies, weak tenants, and old infrastructure. 74 ghost malls across India with 15.5 million square feet dormant space. Out of this, 15 properties hold reinvigoration potential, could generate 357 crores of annual revenue. 74. How many of you believe only 74 malls are ghost malls, right? What do you think? What do you think? Just 74? That's what you think? Just 74. I feel this number could be a little understated. Maybe when they say ghost malls, they say the malls which are absolutely dead, right? Like dead as disco. Actual ghosts come, paranormal activities and stuff. Other than that, malls have been very tricky in India, right? Malls have been very tricky. Moving on, folks. Grade A malls operating at only 5%, 5.7% vacancy, several tier 2 cities demonstrating strong adoption trends. But India is very lucky that at least there's no retail apocalypse. US has been going on and dealing with a retail apocalypse, right? So malls have literally, they shoot horror movies there. Moving on, folks. Jio Hotstar to invest 4,000 crores in South content. 4,000 crores. Good money. Speaking of 4,000 crores, that Ramayan movie that Bollywood is making, they're also saying that they have a budget of 4,000 crores. And that's gonna be the quickest lesson on how to lose money, right? So if you were to write a book about how to lose money, and you're gonna say all the clever ways of losing money, which are not really, uh, which shouldn't be done, right? The first way would be to make a 4,000 crore rupee movie in India, right? Moving on, folks. A lot of IPOs clicking in. 5 IPOs got approval. ARCs seek pass-through for AIF's SR income. AIF is, of course, alternate investments funds. SR security receipts. Asset reconstruction companies have urged the government to extend pass-through tax gains to AIFs, seeking relief from a steep 42% maximum marginal tax currently levied. So, pass-through taxation would shift the tax to investors and make SRs more attractive for domestic and foreign capital. Clearer FPI tax rules could unlock some foreign capital inflow, which is very important. And aligning SR taxes with bonds and GSECs would add predictability. Very, very reasonable asks. Well, we've talked a lot about how India is trying to attract FPI money. This is obviously going to be a step in that direction. The ARCs. Moving on, folks. Some telcos to raise prepaid tariffs to lift profit margins. Of course, average revenue per user to get a lift in the country. Very necessary for the telcos. The 15 years of capex are finally going to yield some results as they get some sort of leverage to raise prices. Just Bharti and Jio, of course. And do you think when Satcom enters at a price of 3,500 to 5,000 rupees or 2,500 to 3,500 rupees, it's gonna anchor the price of that particular service in people's minds, and then telcos will raise their amounts? Do you think that's a real possibility? So as Satcom enters India, and it comes with the facility of $3,500, 2,500 to $3,500, do you think telcos will use that as an anchor of the price and raise their ARPU, right? If it's, let's say, $262 right now, they'll raise it $350, still show that they're much cheaper than Satcom. Is it gonna be a blessing in disguise for the telco operators, the entry of Satcom? Well, let's find out. It's not totally implausible. It is not totally implausible, right? And with that little food for thought, we will end the 189th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Mr. Ashutosh Bhandegar says no. Why is Satcom a big deal? Says Mr. Sumanth Kumar. Why is it not, Mr. Kumar? We've discussed it so much. It is a very, very big deal. Very big deal. And Mr. Ashutosh Bhandegar says no. Are you sure? It happens. Anchoring is a real principle. A very real principle. The differential will still be a lot, right? It's just going to give the telcos some room to reprice themselves, premiumize themselves, because a jump, let's say from 500 to $700 to $2,500 will still be bad, right? But if it can rise up from 300, 500, 300 to 350, 300 to 450, it's going to be a very good news, right? So we come to the end of 189th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:23. We're going to punch in anytime soon. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Until now, only Mr. Sumanth Kumar Mogluri has contributed to the patrons program, supporting Thinker's Frequency with his generous donation of $3,000. In 3,000, we won't be able to afford the techie, which costs $7,500 every month. If you are interested in continuing the show, if you want the show to continue, donate. Otherwise, it's going to be a very clear signal for the market that whatever we are doing here is not really valuable, right? And that would be it. Take care, folks. Donate and see you. Bye bye.